In just a few brutal hours, one frontline village in eastern Ukraine turned into a burning graveyard of armored steel. Dozens of tanks and APCs lie twisted and smoking, hit by mines, missiles, and cheap drones that cost less than a used car. Casualties piled up so fast that both sides ran out of places to hide the wounded. Raw combat footage now spreading across the internet shows something shocking. Soldiers from Russia and Ukraine fighting basement by basement while swarms of FPV drones dive straight into windows and trenches like guided bullets. One village changed hands twice in less than a week, and every time the flag went up, another wave of explosions tore it down again. Tanks that cost millions, armored vehicles built to survive artillery. Even fast attack motorcycles all showed up to fight. Yet the weapon that actually decided who won and who died was a tiny racing drone carrying a hand grenade, flown by a 20-something operator sitting miles away. This single battle raises a question every army on Earth is now asking. Have 100-ton tanks become nothing more than giant targets in a world where a $2,000 drone can kill them in seconds? Stay with this report to see what really happened and why it matters to every battlefield from here on out. Russian forces kicked off their push with a strong armored assault, sending groups of tanks and personnel carriers straight toward the Ukrainian village. And this move set the stage for a tough fight right from the start. They split their units into smaller teams to hit from different sides, and tanks led the charge by pounding defensive walls with heavy rounds, while armored carriers followed close behind. This setup let the big guns draw fire away from the carriers, and those vehicles rushed troops nearer to the edge without getting bogged down early. Crews inside the tanks kept up steady blasts on strong points like bunkers and barriers, and that constant noise forced defenders to stay low, while the carriers pushed through open spots. One leading carrier rolled over a hidden explosive device, but its thick plating held up against the blast, and the machine kept moving forward with soldiers ready to jump out. Other units faced scattered hits from handheld rockets, yet they maintained speed and closed the gap, dropping fighters at key drop zones near the outskirts. As the attack built up, Russian commanders mixed in drone strikes to spot hidden threats, and ground teams added rifle bursts plus grenade launches to keep pressure high. Tanks shifted positions to block any quick counter moves from the Ukrainian side, and this blend of firepower pinned down guards in their spots. Defenders tried to hold lines with machine guns and anti-tank shots, but the incoming waves made it hard to focus on one threat at a time. Shells from the tanks tore through earthworks and scattered debris everywhere, and that destruction opened paths for the carriers to weave closer without much cover left for the other team. A few drones zipped overhead to guide the big vehicles around traps, and this tech help ensured the advance stayed on track despite rough ground. Video clips from the scene captured intense moments where armored units took direct strikes from Ukrainian drones and guided missiles, and those impacts showed how vulnerable even tough machines could become in close quarters. One clip revealed a carrier catching a drone blast on its side, sparking flames that crews quickly put out before pressing on. And this quick fix kept the group moving toward their goal. Missiles streaked in from hidden launchers, clipping tracks on some vehicles and forcing stops for repairs under fire. But most units adapted by changing routes or using smoke to hide. These recordings highlighted dents and burns on hulls, and they proved that while losses happened, the overall surge overwhelmed the initial barriers. No exact count emerged on wrecked machines during this phase, but the footage made clear that several got damaged, yet the assault rolled forward anyway. With shells raining down and drones buzzing low, Ukrainian troops faced tough choices, and they gathered injured comrades before falling back to stronger lines further away. The pullout came under chase from Russian spotters, but quick maneuvers let most Ukrainian soldiers escape without total chaos. Tanks kept hammering retreat paths to slow any regrouping, and this final push cleared the way for full control of the area. Ground fire from advancing soldiers sealed off escape routes, and that combo left the village open for the next steps. So, during this opening assault phase, do tanks still serve as a solid breakthrough tool, or have they turned into easy marks for FPV drones? Russian troops quickly turned the captured village into a sturdy base after pushing out the defenders, and this shift marked a key moment where offense changed to solid defense in the ongoing clash. Soldiers jumped from their carriers right after reaching the outskirts, and they spread out in tight squads to claim broken-down structures scattered across the area. Teams moved fast through shattered homes and barns, checking corners for any leftover threats while securing spots with clear views of approach paths. One group took over a half-ruined church tower for high ground advantage, and they stacked sandbags around windows to create steady firing spots without exposing themselves much. Others cleared debris from narrow streets to set up roadblocks, using fallen walls as natural barriers that funneled any incoming forces into kill zones. No residents stayed behind in the zone, so the empty buildings offered plenty of room for hidden caches. And that lack of people let the units focus purely on military setup without extra worries. As squads settled in, they dug fresh trenches along the tree lines surrounding the settlement, and these positions linked up with existing craters from earlier blasts to form a connected network. One team reinforced a basement under a collapsed store by propping beams against crumbling ceilings, and they turned the space into a command hub with radios plus maps spread out on makeshift tables. Barriers rose from piled bricks and metal scraps, blocking side alleys that might serve as sneak routes for opponents. This transformation made the whole place a tough urban stronghold, and soldiers coordinated shifts to watch all directions without gaps. Heavy guns got mounted on rooftops for longer range shots, overlooking distant hills where reinforcements might appear, and that setup aimed to slow any quick strikes from the other side. A flag bearing Russian colors went up over the tallest remaining roof as a clear sign of control, and this act boosted morale among the ranks while sending a message to distant observers. Patrols circled the perimeter to spot weak links in the layout, adjusting barricades based on fresh intel from handheld devices. This declaration came with added security measures, like tripwires strung across likely entry points, and those traps connected to flares that would light up intruders at night. Meanwhile, Russian drones hovered above to keep eyes on the landscape, scanning for signs of gathering forces while dropping small payloads on suspicious movements nearby. Operators guided these machines from safe vans parked just outside the village, feeding live feeds to ground leaders who adjusted plans on the fly. One drone circled low over a nearby forest, spotting tracks that hinted at recent retreats, and it relayed data back to prevent surprises. These aerial tools blocked potential regrouping by the opposing side, buzzing paths that led toward the area and forcing any scouts to stay hidden. Constant flights maintained a watchful layer over the new base, combining tech with boots-on-the-ground efforts to lock down the win. Just days after the Russians planted their flag, Ukrainian troops struck back with a sharp counterattack, rolling in M113 carriers plus other armored vehicles to flip the village right back under their control. The push started under heavy cover fire from supporting units farther out, and those M113s sped toward the edge while Russian shells exploded nearby and drones hunted overhead. Drivers hugged low ground and twisted paths to dodge direct hits, then braked hard at a safe drop point where incoming rounds thinned out. Soldiers poured out the back ramps and practiced moves, helmets low and rifles ready, before the carriers reversed fast to avoid becoming targets. One M113 took shrapnel across its side, but kept its machine gun chattering to suppress windows where enemy muzzles flashed, and that steady burst gave the dismounting teams precious seconds to scatter into cover. The vehicles formed a quick shield wall for a moment, guns blazing toward suspected spots, then pulled away as fresh squads fanned out on foot. Once on the ground, fighters broke into small fire teams of 4 or 5 men each, and they moved house by house through the wrecked streets with tight coordination. Each group covered the next as they kicked in doors or slipped through broken walls, clearing rooms with quick glances and shouted calls. Grenades led the way into dark basements where shadows hid threats, and the blasts echoed up stairwells before anyone stepped inside. One team heard muffled voices below a collapsed floor, paused just long enough to pull pins, then tossed explosives down the stairs and waited for the dust to settle before advancing. Rifle fire cracked in short bursts to pin down anyone trying to pop up from behind furniture or rubble piles, and shoulder-fired launchers sent rockets into upper floors when heavy resistance showed itself. These close-quarters sweeps demanded constant communication through hand signals and low whispers, keeping the advance steady without bunching up into easy groups. Progress turned brutal when teams had to cross open patches between clusters of buildings, and soldiers dropped flat to crawl across exposed dirt with almost nothing to hide behind except charred tree stumps and scattered bricks. Rounds kicked up dust inches from their boots as they inched forward, dragging gear and keeping weapons trained on windows ahead. One fighter froze when a drone buzzed close overhead, then rolled into a shallow crater just as the payload detonated a few yards away, showering him with dirt but leaving him unhurt to keep moving. Another squad laid down rapid fire from the side to force hidden gunners to duck, buying time for their buddies to sprint the last dangerous stretch and dive behind a crumbling wall. These risky dashes relied on perfect timing and trust, because any hesitation meant getting caught in the open under direct sight. Throughout the push, the assault groups showed sharp discipline that kept casualties remarkably low, and they flanked positions instead of charging straight in whenever possible. Leaders called out adjustments on the fly, redirecting teams around strong points or calling in precise mortar support to soften tough spots. Soldiers shared ammo and bandages without slowing, passing gear hand to hand while maintaining momentum through the ruins. Video from helmet cams and drones captured these raw moments of soldiers belly crawling through ash, lobbing grenades over walls, and rising to storm the next building together. Both sides relied heavily on FPV drones throughout the clash, turning these small flying machines into the deadliest tools for both striking hard and holding ground during the intense village fight. Russian operators launched their devices early to disrupt Ukrainian movements, zooming in close to assault groups and slamming explosives right into clustered soldiers before they could spread out. Pilots steered the gadgets from hidden spots behind lines, adjusting paths mid-flight to chase dodging teams across rubble-strewn paths. One drone locked onto a retreating vehicle loaded with wounded fighters, racing after it at high speed but veering off course at the last second and exploding harmlessly in dirt. These attacks not only scattered advancing units, but also fed real-time details back to artillery crews, pinpointing clusters for shell barrages that followed seconds later. Spotters used camera feeds to mark buildings where troops hunkered down, guiding big guns to rain blasts on those roofs and walls without wasting rounds. This combo kept pressure constant on the other team, forcing them to shift constantly and lose momentum in their push. Ukrainian controllers countered by deploying their own FPV units for scouting ahead, weaving through trees and alleys to reveal hidden enemy nests before ground forces got too close. Devices hovered low over trenches, capturing glimpses of gunners adjusting sights or reloading clips, then relayed those views to squad leaders who planned flanking routes around the threats. One machine dipped into a narrow gap near a bunker entrance, spotting movement inside and diving straight in with its payload to clear the space in a flash of light and smoke. These precise hits targeted doorways where defenders peeked out, collapsing frames and burying anyone nearby under falling debris. Guides directed rockets toward machine gun posts perched on high ledges, exploding just inches from the barrels and silencing the fire for crucial moments. Footage from the battle showed FPV drones plunging directly toward targets mere feet from ongoing skirmishes, highlighting their speed and accuracy in chaotic settings. A Russian device streaking toward an exposed Ukrainian position during a street crossing, yet shooting slowly enough for the soldiers to abandon the spot and sprint back to their vehicle before it detonated nearby. Another recording revealed a Ukrainian unit guiding its flyer into an open hatch on a fortified house, the blast ripping through the interior and cutting off rifle shots from within. Operators fine-tuned controls to evade anti-air bursts, looping back for second tries when initial runs fell short. Defensive roles amplified the drone's impact as both forces used them to guard perimeters, circling overhead to detect infiltrators slipping through shadows or crawling near barriers. Russian flyers patrolled outer edges, dropping charges on any suspicious rustles in bushes and alerting nearby guards to respond with grenades. Ukrainian versions scanned rooftops for snipers adjusting scopes, then slammed into those vantage points to knock out the threats before they could aim. This ongoing aerial battle layered extra danger over the ground action, making every open move a gamble against unseen hunters above. Pilots competed in a silent duel of maneuvers, countering each other's flights with quick dodges or electronic jams that forced crashes into neutral ground. Could FPV drones now take over jobs that once belonged only to artillery crews or attack helicopters? As Ukrainian teams closed in tight, Russian commanders scrambled reinforcements on tactical motorcycles across wide fields, but FPV drones turned the speedy riders into sitting ducks before they reached the village lines. Riders gunned engines over bumpy terrain in small packs, weaving between ditches and low bushes to cut time and dodge spotters from afar. One lead bike zipped ahead with a passenger clutching extra ammo crates, but a hovering device locked on from above and slammed down in a burst that flipped the machine end over end. Others scattered at the site, revving harder toward tree cover on the horizon. Yet more flyers chased relentlessly with whirring props and adjusted dives to match their pace. Pilots controlling the gadgets from distant screens predicted turns based on dust trails, sending payloads that erupted in flames and scattered gear across grass. This hunt wiped out the entire group without a single survivor making it through, leaving twisted frames smoking in the open as a stark warning. Ground observers watched the chaos unfold through binoculars, radioing back that no help would arrive to bolster sagging defenses inside the settlement. Desperate to halt the advance, Russian artillery units unleashed MLRS Grad rockets over the whole area, blanketing streets and buildings in a fire barrier, even where their own fighters clung to positions. Launchers positioned miles back fired salvos in quick succession, rockets streaking skyward before arcing down in clusters that shook the ground with thunderous impacts. One volley targeted a central square still held by defenders, shards ripping through roofs and walls that had sheltered machine gunners moments before. Operators reloaded tubes under cover of smoke, adjusting angles slightly for the next wave that lit up the skyline in orange glows. Yet this heavy fire destroyed more structures the Russians depended on for cover, stripping away their edge and leaving defenses in tatters across the battered landscape. Blasts crumbled remaining facades that had served as sniper perches, burying firing slits under tons of falling concrete and exposing hidden spots to direct view. One fortified house collapsed entirely from a direct strike, its basement filling with dust and trapping gear that fighters needed for prolonged resistance. This self-inflicted damage reduced safe havens to scattered pockets, forcing survivors to abandon strongholds and scramble for new hides amid growing chaos. Commanders realized too late how the plan backfired, as key vantage points turned into useless piles that offered no protection against closing foes. The once solid network of positions fractured under the weight of their own weapons, handing momentum back to the other side. Once the shelling faded into echoes, Ukrainian squads pushed deeper into the ruins and found very few Russian troops still breathing amid the wreckage. Teams advanced cautiously with weapons raised, stepping over fresh craters and peering into shadowed gaps where movement had ceased. One group rounded a corner to spot a lone figure slumped against a wall, hands raised in surrender after the blast silenced his comrades nearby. Others cleared a line of smashed shops, kicking aside debris to reveal empty foxholes that showed signs of hasty retreats under fire. Leaders signaled all clear in sectors as they linked up, confirming the heavy toll that left the village core almost deserted of active resistance. Finally, Ukrainian forces rounded up remaining captives, swept through last pockets of danger, and raised their flag high to reclaim the ground. Soldiers bound hands of dazed prisoners emerging from hides, marching them back under guard while medics checked for wounds. One final team tossed charges into a suspicious cellar where faint noises stirred, the explosion confirming no threats lingered in the depths. Flags unfurled over a central post amid quiet cheers, symbolizing the hard shift back to control after days of back and forth. This wrap-up secured the area fully, with patrols fanning out to watch horizons for any fresh signs of trouble. Do you think the Russians firing Grad rockets into zones with their own troops was a tough call they had to make, or just a flat-out tactical mistake? A single ruined street and a handful of burning vehicles just exposed something bigger than a local fight. It showed how fast the rules of modern war are being rewritten. Cheap drones now shape every step on the ground, and small infantry teams can break armored pushes that once required full brigades. The battle you just watched summed up the whole picture. Fast FPV hits that cut through million-dollar armor, motorbike units replacing heavy carriers, and close-range tactics that punish any force moving without eyes in the sky. These clashes may look small on a map, yet they reveal the real shift taking place across today's wars. Power no longer comes from the biggest tank or the loudest gun, but from the side that controls timing, sensors, and precision under pressure. And that brings us to the question everyone is now asking. Is this fight only a single episode in a long frontline story? Or is it the preview of a new global model where drones, signals, and small assault groups decide victory in minutes? What happens next may depend on who adapts faster, and who fails to change before the next shock arrives. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more clear, straight battlefield analysis like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Military Force.